Mid-2026, high above our warming oceans, the advanced satellites of NOAA are flashing with blinding crimson warnings. A planetary monster has just awakened in the Atlantic. Its name is Super Hurricane Siren. It is an absolute atmospheric beast, a Category 5 nightmare with a cloud diameter stretching all the way from Florida to Boston. And right now, it is locked onto Manhattan. Inside the howling dark of the storm's eye, NOAA's hurricane hunters are flying their heavily reinforced aircraft directly into the eye wall. Their instruments register a sudden, catastrophic pressure drop, the kind of sudden plunge that signals a storm rapidly feeding on raw oceanic energy. According to urgent data analyzed by the NASA Goddard Institute for Space Studies, this rapid intensification is being driven by historically anomalous sea surface temperatures. The Atlantic has become a giant boiling battery, and Siren is drawing every milliwatt of its power. Imagine looking out your window and seeing the sky turn a bruised, radioactive purple. Imagine knowing you have exactly 45 minutes to flee before the hammer falls. But as you sprint toward the nearest exit, reality hits you like a concrete wall. Every single subway line is already drowned. The bridges are completely gridlocked. The vehicular tunnels are already trapped under 10 feet of rushing, pitch-black ocean water. You are not just stranded, you are locked inside a multi-trillion-dollar cage. What would you actually do to survive? Drop your survival plan in the comments below, because we are mapping out this exact scenario in real time. If this heavy scientific alert opens your eyes, hit the like button right now. If we can smash 5,000 likes on this video, the algorithm will push this urgent planetary warning to millions who are still fast asleep. Because the terrifying truth is, Super Hurricane Siren is not a normal storm. It is the direct, violent consequence of record-shattering marine heat waves that cooked the Atlantic throughout 2025 and early 2026. The ocean has spent months absorbing pure thermodynamic energy, acting like a massive pressurized boiler tank. Now that energy is exploding into the atmosphere. But the real catastrophe of New York City is not the weather. It is a hidden, fatal structural design flaw built directly into the low-lying geography of the metropolis itself. A systemic engineering choice that is about to turn a natural weather anomaly into an absolute, inescapable death sentence. To truly understand this vulnerability, we have to look back to the historical logs of the 17th century Dutch settlers. When the first colonizers drew up the Manatus map of 1639, they did not see a solid island of rock. They mapped a highly delicate, fluid network of salt marshes, tidal creeks, and swampy wetlands. Manhattan's lower tip was never meant to hold millions of tons of concrete and steel. It was naturally designed to absorb the sea. By paving over these ancient waterways, we did not conquer nature. We simply hid the trapdoor, and Siren is about to kick it wide open. To predict the future, we must first master the physics of the present. The National Hurricane Center has just upgraded Super Hurricane Siren to a Category 5 monster, and the underlying data is deeply, profoundly alarming. The core of this disaster lies in a process called rapid intensification, a sudden exponential plunge in barometric pressure that blindsided standard forecasting models. This happens when a storm system encounters an absolute thermodynamic gold mine. In mid-2026, that gold mine is an ocean surface temperature of 86 degrees Fahrenheit, a thermal anomaly that acts as a high-octane rocket fuel engine. The physics are pure, unyielding fluid dynamics. As the extreme heat evaporates vast amounts of ocean water, hot, hypersaturated air rushes vertically into the upper atmosphere. This rapid upward conveyor belt triggers a process called latent heat release, where water vapor condenses into cloud droplets, freeing its stored thermal energy directly into the storm's core. This massive injection of heat warms the center, lowering the air density, plunging the central barometric pressure, and causing the surrounding eyewall winds to spin exponentially faster. The energy conversion taking place inside this spinning atmospheric cylinder is completely off the charts. Scientists calculating the total kinetic energy of Siren's mature wind field arrive at a terrifying conclusion. The mechanical force generated by its 165 mile/hour sustained winds translates to roughly 1.5 trillion watts of continuous power. That means the raw, physical force rippling through the air is equivalent to 20,000 Hiroshima-class nuclear bombs, detonating every single hour in the sky. It is a nuclear-scale kinetic bombardment, sustained not for a fraction of a second but for days on end. Now take that unfathomable kinetic energy and apply it to the surface of the ocean. The wind relentlessly friction drags the top layers of the Atlantic, piling up a colossal mass of water that cannot escape. This is the storm surge, and it is accelerating directly into lower New York Bay. To understand the sheer magnitude of the incoming water, we have to look at the historical logs of the 1821 New York hurricane. On September 3rd of that year, a smaller Category 2 storm pushed a sudden 13-foot storm surge into the harbor in just 1 hour, completely destroying Battery Park and joining the Hudson and East Rivers across Canal Street. But that historic flood struck at low tide, sparing the city from absolute ruin. Siren does not have that historical mercy. Its massive 16-foot wall of water strikes at a catastrophic moment, perfectly synchronized with astronomical high tide. The low-lying coastal defenses of modern Battery Park are overwhelmed in a matter of minutes. The ocean surges over the concrete bulkheads, turning West Street and FDR Drive into roaring deep-water rapids. But the true claustrophobic nightmare is unfolding underground, modeled with terrifying precision by Columbia University's Earth Institute. New York's vast subway network is an interconnected labyrinth of subsurface channels, highly vulnerable to pressure-driven inundation. The immense weight of the ocean water flooding the streets exerts immense hydrostatic pressure, forcing the sea down through every sidewalk ventilation grate, elevator shaft, and station entrance. The 1, 2, 3, and L subway lines are the first to drop. The narrow enclosed concrete transit tunnels, designed solely for trains, are instantly converted into high-pressure water mains. The air inside the tunnels is violently compressed by the incoming wall of water, creating a trapped high-velocity pneumatic blast that blows out steel station doors and structural bulkheads. The heavily mineralized, conductive saltwater travels at 25 miles per hour through the dark tubes, instantly short-circuiting the 600-volt third rails in spectacular flashes of green fire. The ancient rusted mechanical pumps meant to handle minor groundwater are instantly submerged and destroyed by the corrosive brine. There is no stopping the flow, there is no manual valve to turn. The fluid dynamics modeled by the Earth Institute show the water rising to the ceilings of the lowest stations in less than 40 minutes, trapping pockets of supercompressed air, heavy debris, and abandoned equipment in a pitch-black subterranean vault. The vital circulatory system of the world's wealthiest metropolis has officially become a flooded, inaccessible tomb. This brings us directly to the most uncomfortable and deeply devastating truth of modern planetary disasters. A super hurricane, even one as violently energetic as Siren, is purely an act of physics. It is a natural thermodynamic mechanism, a giant heat engine balancing the temperature of a warming planet. But the row of body bags lining the flooded streets and the absolute catastrophic destruction of human homes is never an accident of nature. It is a direct, calculated choice made by human beings. This is the survival gap. In this modern era, your survival during a global climate crisis does not depend on fate or luck. It depends entirely on the wealth of your city, the vision of your engineers, and the political will to invest in concrete infrastructure before the water arrives. To see what happens when a society chooses to fight back with hyper-advanced engineering, we must look across the Atlantic to the Netherlands. Much of this low-lying nation sits completely below sea level, leaving it permanently exposed to the violent, unpredictable storms of the North Sea. Instead of relying on hope, the Dutch constructed the Delta Works, a legendary multi-billion-dollar network of high-tech dams, sluice gates, and automated storm surge barriers. The absolute crown jewel of this system is the massive Maaslandkering, protecting the economic heart of Rotterdam. This incredible feat of kind engineering consists of 2 giant, hollow white steel gates, each as long as the Eiffel Tower is tall. These gates are fully connected to a highly advanced, automated supercomputer network, monitored constantly by the Rijkswaterstaat. When advanced forecasting models predict a storm surge rising above 3 meters, the computer system takes absolute control without requiring a single human order. The massive steel arms automatically swing shut across the shipping channel, filling the hollow structures with water so they sink precisely onto the reinforced riverbed. This creates a massive, impenetrable wall of solid steel, completely blocking the fury of the North Sea and saving millions of residents from drowning. Similarly, the city of Tokyo, Japan, has built its own subterranean fortress to defeat the relentless threat of typhoon-driven floods. Deep beneath the northern edge of the metropolis lies the GCANS project, officially known as the Metropolitan Area Outer Underground Discharge Channel. This is a jaw-dropping underground cathedral of engineering, consisting of 59 towering, 65-foot-tall concrete pillars supporting a massive reservoir chamber. When severe rains saturate the surface, the excess floodwater is automatically diverted down into 5 colossal subterranean storage silos. From there, 59 high-power turbines driven by aircraft-grade jet engines pump the water out at an incredible rate of 200 tons per second. The toxic floodwaters are safely discharged into the wide Edo River, completely neutralizing the threat of urban catastrophe before the water can even touch a citizen's shoes. But when you cross back to New York City, this illusion of modern, high-tech supremacy completely shatters into a grim reality of political negligence. New York is arguably the financial capital of the human race, generating over 10% of the entire United States GDP. Yet, beneath the glittering glass penthouses of Manhattan lies a fragile, crumbling infrastructure that has been systematically starved of critical safety investments. Following the devastating impact of Hurricane Sandy in 2012, scientists at the Columbia University Earth Institute laid out an absolute blueprint for survival. They proposed the Big U, officially known as the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project, a continuous system of integrated floodwalls, berms, and deployable gates wrapping completely around Lower Manhattan. They also pushed for the HAT, the Harbor and Tributaries Ocean Gates, a massive network of sea barriers designed to completely seal off New York Harbor from a catastrophic ocean surge. Instead of building, the city entered a decade-long loop of bureaucratic stalling, bitter political bickering, and endless budget disputes. Neighborhood activist groups fought over the aesthetic impact of the walls, while politicians argued over who would foot the multi-billion-dollar bill. As the years ticked by toward 2026, the critical flood walls remained unbuilt, stuck in a perpetual nightmare of environmental reviews and administrative red tape. While the Netherlands and Japan actively engineered their survival, New York chose to gamble with the lives of its citizens. The consequences of this systemic failure are not distributed equally, revealing a brutal, heart-wrenching economic divide along class lines. In the wealthy, highly protected high-rises of Midtown Manhattan, residents can afford to evacuate to luxury hotels inland or shelter in place with private, rooftop backup generators. But for the low-income, historically neglected communities living in highly exposed coastal areas like Red Hook, Brooklyn, and the Rockaways, Queens, there is no shield. These neighborhoods are built directly on vulnerable sandy coastlines, completely isolated from the main economic resources of the city. Many residents here live in poorly maintained public housing complexes with ancient, fragile electrical systems located in low-lying, flood-prone basements. When the massive storm surge of Super Hurricane Siren breached the shoreline, these families were completely trapped in the pitch black. There were no automated steel gates to protect their streets and no jet-powered turbines to drain their hallways. The water rose so rapidly through the narrow streets that it transformed their ground-floor apartments into watery, inescapable traps before an evacuation order could even be fully delivered. This is the ultimate devastating lesson of the survival gap. The ocean water does not care about our economic status or our politics, but our infrastructure certainly does. The high death toll in these vulnerable communities is not a tragedy of nature. It is a direct consequence of a political system that values real estate over human lives, and administrative stalling over basic survival engineering. We built our own doom by choosing to ignore the physical realities of the planet we inhabit. The immediate impact of a storm surge is only the beginning of a far more terrifying interconnected nightmare of societal collapse. When a Category 5 monster like Super Hurricane Siren strikes a hyperdense global hub, it triggers a chaotic, unstoppable cascade of failures. Disaster planners at the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, refer to this process as a multi-sectoral cascade, where the destruction of one critical system immediately and violently causes the collapse of several others. This is not a localized emergency that ends when the winds finally die down and the rain stops. It is a massive, systemic shock wave that quickly ripples through the invisible, highly fragile networks of modern technology, public health, and global finance. The first silent domino falls deep beneath the flooded asphalt streets of Manhattan, far below the notice of fleeing citizens. The high-velocity storm surge carries billions of gallons of highly corrosive, conductive Atlantic saltwater, which completely submerges the city's subterranean utility conduits. These dark, concrete trenches house the vital, ultra-high-speed fiber optic cables that connect the servers of Wall Street to the rest of the planet. While fiber optic glass cables themselves are designed to carry light, the critical junctions, repeaters, and distribution hubs are not waterproof. The salt in the seawater acts as a highly conductive, destructive electrolyte, instantly short-circuiting the delicate electronic interfaces. According to structural studies from Columbia University's Earth Institute, this physical destruction immediately severs the primary data lines of major stock exchanges, including the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ. The global financial system, which processes trillions of dollars in automated trades every microsecond, is instantly blinded and isolated. Banking networks go dark, ATMs across the nation freeze, and credit card transaction processing systems crash, triggering immediate panic in global markets. The economic heart of the world does not just skip a beat, it suffers a catastrophic, localized cardiac arrest. At the exact same time, a highly dangerous biological crisis is brewing along the flooded coastlines as the power grid collapses. New York City relies on massive centralized wastewater treatment plants, all of which are located directly at water's edge to discharge treated effluent. As the storm surge submerges these critical facilities, the high-voltage electrical substations that power the massive industrial treatment pumps instantly short-circuit. With no electrical power, and with their physical structures completely inundated by seawater, the treatment plants grind to a complete halt. This causes millions of gallons of raw, untreated municipal sewage mixed with industrial chemicals and street runoff to back up. The toxic slurry overflows from manholes and drains, mixing directly with the standing floodwaters on the city streets. This highly contaminated water quickly infiltrates the shallow, aging clean water distribution networks through microscopic cracks in the pressurized pipes. As the water pressure in the municipal system drops due to power failures, a process known as back siphonage occurs. The toxic, pathogen-rich sewage is sucked directly into the drinking water supply, rendering the tap water highly poisonous. Within hours, a silent, invisible biological hazard spreads through the plumbing of thousands of high-rise buildings and homes. Anyone attempting to drink from the tap or use the water to wash faces immediate exposure to dangerous waterborne pathogens. As the disaster passes the 48-hour mark, the regional emergency escalates into an absolute, worst-case national security crisis. The initial collapse of the New York electrical grid triggers a massive, uncontrolled power surge across the wider Eastern interconnection. This massive, interconnected power transmission network, which supplies electricity to the entire eastern half of the United States, cannot handle the sudden disruption. Automated safety breakers at major power plants across the Northeast begin to trip, attempting to protect the delicate, multi-million-dollar generators from damage. Like a row of falling dominoes, power plant after power plant goes completely offline, plunging the entire Mid-Atlantic and New England regions into darkness. Over 50 million people are suddenly left without electricity in a massive, cold, and rapidly deteriorating urban landscape. The silence that settles over the darkened cities is heavy, ominous, and filled with growing desperation. Deep inside this darkened, powerless zone, a far more terrifying nuclear nightmare begins to unfold at several coastal nuclear power plants. Facilities like the Millstone Power Station in Connecticut, located directly on the coast, are designed to withstand significant environmental forces. When the regional grid collapses, the nuclear reactors automatically initiate an emergency shutdown, inserting control rods to halt the fission process. However, even after a reactor is shut down, the nuclear fuel rods remain incredibly hot, requiring constant, active water cooling. With the main electrical grid completely dead, the plants must rely entirely on their on-site emergency diesel generators to run the cooling pumps. But the extreme, unprecedented storm surge from Super Hurricane Siren has completely flooded the low-lying fuel storage tanks and generator rooms. The diesel engines, designed to keep the cooling water flowing, are choked with seawater and sputter to a silent, terrifying stop. The operators are left with only a limited supply of emergency backup batteries, which will last for less than 24 hours. If they cannot restore power to the cooling pumps before the batteries die, the water in the reactor cores will boil away. The nuclear fuel rods will begin to melt, paving the way for a catastrophic core meltdown and the release of highly radioactive clouds. By the 72-hour mark, the social fabric of the isolated, waterlogged cities begins to tear apart at the seams. With no electricity, the municipal water pumps are dead, and the supply of bottled water in local supermarkets is entirely exhausted. Cellular communication towers have exhausted their backup batteries, leaving millions of people completely cut off, with no way to call for help. The delivery of emergency food and medical supplies is completely blocked, as major highways remain submerged under feet of toxic water. In the dark, sweltering streets, desperation quickly turns into raw, uncontrolled panic, as survival instincts override the rules of civilized society. Pharmacies and grocery stores are looted, emergency services are completely overwhelmed, and the thin veneer of modern civilization is washed away. We are left with a sobering, terrifying realization of how quickly our advanced, high-tech world can be reduced to absolute chaos. Our survival does not depend on our sophisticated gadgets, but on the continuous fragile flow of electricity and clean water. When those systems fail, we are forced to confront the harsh, uncompromising reality of a world where nature rules supreme. Let us clear the air of the sensationalized doomsday hysteria filling your feeds. The planet is not angry with us, and Super Hurricane Siren is not a sentient act of divine retribution. It is simply classical thermodynamics, atmospheric physics operating on a massive global scale. The ocean has absorbed extreme amounts of thermal energy, and a tropical cyclone is the Earth's natural radiator, a pressure release valve redistributing that heat toward the poles. The disaster only occurs because we chose to build a multi-trillion-dollar concrete playground inside a natural coastal drainage basin. When you pave over marshes and force millions of people to live at sea level, gravity and fluid dynamics will eventually do exactly what they have done for billions of years. To survive this inevitable reality, you cannot rely on the municipal grid or wait for a rescue helicopter that may never arrive. You need a personal, proactive, and scientifically sound survival protocol. First, you must construct a specialized flood-specific 72-hour go bag. Ditch the heavy gear and prioritize immediate hydration and buoyancy, including a compact manual water filtration pump, water purification tablets, a lightweight personal flotation device, and high-calorie emergency rations. Wrap all critical documents, medication, and electronics in double-sealed, heavy-duty dry bags, ensuring your survival cache can float beside you if you are forced to swim. Second, memorize the vertical evacuation rule. If a 16-foot storm surge strikes your area and you cannot evacuate inland, do not try to outrun the water on foot or in a vehicle. Instead, climb. You must ascend above the 10th floor of a steel-reinforced concrete structure. This specific height is critical. It places you safely above the reach of the toxic, sewage-laden water surge below, yet keeps you below the highly violent, high-velocity wind zones that shatter upper-story glass windows on skyscraper faces. Third, establish a low-bandwidth communication plan. When local cell towers lose power, voice calls and internet data lines will instantly fail. However, basic text-only SMS messages require significantly lower signal strength and will often still slip through the congested network queues. Appoint a single out-of-state contact as your family's centralized communication hub, and have everyone send text-only location updates directly to them to preserve phone battery and network bandwidth. Ultimately, we must confront the cold, sobering truth of human hubris. We can build towering glass skyscrapers, draft complex financial algorithms, and construct massive concrete seawalls, but we cannot negotiate with the laws of physics. The ocean does not recognize our borders, our wealth, or our self-importance. If we continue to build our civilizations on the fragile, shifting edge of a changing planet without adapting, The water will always come back to reclaim its territory. The choice is ours. We can engineer our survival, or we can let the rising tide wash our complacency away. If this deep scientific breakdown helped you understand the real forces shaping our world, make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Stay vigilant, stay prepared, and we will see you in the next investigation.